Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting virtual tour. I'm your guide tonight, Chris, with Pretty Gritty Tours. I hope by now you know me. And I'm excited that you guys are here. And I really genuinely appreciate it because, quite frankly, I know that the appetite for virtual experiences isn't quite what it used to be. And so it's always exciting to tune in and see your guys' smiling icons. And yeah. Oh yeah, I got the Bill Nye the History Guy vibe going on tonight, so I appreciate you noticing. So, glass art in Tacoma. What the heck? It's crazy to me that we haven't done this previously because Tacoma has kind of established itself as a glass city in a lot of ways, right? And how did we get there is the question that I'm going to try and answer tonight. So, if you're ready, let's jump on in. It's good to see you guys. I'm glad you're all here. How did this happen? Well, here we go. So without any question in my mind, it's Chihuly. Boom, tour done. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great night. Dale Chihuly, born and raised in Tacoma, and one of, if not the most recognizable international glass artists in the world. And so much Chihuly artwork fills not just the world, but primarily the Pacific Northwest. So like the great Chihuly exhibit up in Seattle, I think is the one that people are most familiar and famous with. But of course, Tacoma is the crucible in which this genius takes hold and really develops in the area here. And so luckily for us, a lot of that glass art came back home and took root here in the Tacoma area and then kind of became the seeds for a movement of glass creation and inspiration in the area. And today you can see actually quite a bit of independent glass art in the area. But it begins and ends really with this Chihuly through line. And that's where we're going tonight. So if for some reason you have not yet been introduced to Mr. Dale Chihuly, here he is, born in 1941 in Tacoma, Washington. And he didn't just come out of the womb ready to blow glass. It was a long, epic tale that got him to this point. But you can still see a lot of his inspiration and then his original artworks here throughout the city of Tacoma right now. One of the ones that often gets overlooked is actually the Blue Mice. So if you've been to the Blue Mouse Theater in the Proctor District, this is one of two Blue Mouse theaters that once existed. The other one was right down by the other theaters in the theater district, I think just off of 11th originally. And that one was destroyed over time. This is the one that remains today. And those neon mice are Chihuly originals. He made those when he was dabbling in neon glass art, which I think is a medium that people forget sometimes. And you see little pieces, little hints and clues, like a choose your own adventure mystery novel all throughout the city of Tacoma. Chihuly was at Stadium High School. He attended Stadium for 2 years before he ended up going to Wilson. And in the basement, in the archives of Stadium, just propped there, are pieces of original Chihuly art. Back in the time when he wasn't even, I'm going to make the bold claim, considered an artist yet, right? So yeah, it's true. He was one of our finest exports, Mr. Dale Chihuly. Also good to see you guys. So Chihuly sets up the scene, and it's really and fascinating tale. And if you want to dive more into depth of this isn't a Dale Chihuly tour, but of course he is our cornerstone. You can go to Chihuly Life, and it's right there online. You can go step by step through his timeline. Look at this guy. Oh man, 1962. And here's the thing. So here he is, Mr. Dale Patrick Chihuly, back in the 1940s when he was here out in Tacoma. And he was introduced to glass while he was studying interior design, of all things, at the University of Washington, from which he graduated in 1965. And he didn't enroll in his first glass program in the country. Well, here's the thing. He enrolled in the first glass program in the country, which also was his, at the University of Wisconsin. And that's kind of where he took off. But here he is as a young high schooler out here with his sweet board, shredding it out in the Tacoma area. And while he was attending Stadium, by all accounts I've heard, he was kind of just trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. And his was one that had quite a bit of tragedy in it. He lost his father quite young, among other family members. And we don't really have to get too much into that. But I think there is something quintessential to the creative process that is abstracted from loss. And Chihuly attributes a lot of his inspiration and success to sort of the area here, the Pacific Northwest, and in particular, the water. And I think you can read a little deeper into that, and that his upbringing here really informed a lot of his process as well. And without any question, without any doubt whatsoever, there's no debate here, it was his mom who is the great rocket propulsion to this whole thing. So we need to take a moment to thank Mrs. Chihuly for all that she has done, because she really propelled him to take something, to do something, and to attribute his talents and skills outside of just trying to find himself. And so he attended Stadium High School for 2 years, at which point Stadium got too big, and so they had completed Wilson High School. And so he, along with a lot of the other student body from Stadium, ends up going to Wilson, where he graduates from. And then, let's see, in late 1960s, 1967, Chihuly he's all around, right? At this point, he's become quintessentially famous in the area, and really is just the name that you attribute to glass art. Today, it's a crazy, because I think, I run the cruise tours in Tacoma too, and all these people arrive here to Tacoma being like, we are here because of Chihuly. We want to see the glass. And so they immediately make a beeline for the Museum of Glass. That's a logical conclusion, I think. And Chihuly was the one who was like, no, I don't want the Museum of Glass to be the Museum of Chihuly. Let's focus on other artists. Let's tell this story of creation through the lens of so many other talented people. What we'll do is create something else. And so in the 90s, there was this revitalization of the downtown area. In particular, the Foss Waterway, one of our super fun cleanups here in the Tacoma area. Cheers us for messing things up and then making it better. That's the Tacoma story. One of the super fun cleanups of the Foss Waterway ends up becoming this opportunity to really revitalize the downtown core. And so now you see things like the Washington State History Museum blossom in the area, the Museum of Glass, and we create this corridor of museums down there. But to get from downtown to the waterfront, which was very much industrial at that time, you had to jump the tracks. You had to go over an active train line. And even today, that's the case, as well as now 705. And so they're like, well, here's what we'll do. Let's build a bridge. Why don't we make a glass bridge? And that's the other misleading part. Two things that Tacoma will trick you with. A, there's not much Chihuly in the Museum of Glass. B, the glass bridge is not, in fact, made of glass, but features glass. So there are quite a few public exhibits, free 24/7, where you can see Chihuly glass. You don't have to go up to Seattle and wish that you had never done that. You can just come right downtown Tacoma and see this illuminated glass, whether by sun or light at night. And it's three forms. So when you're on the glass bridge, again, this was developed in the early 1990s, 1991. They worked with Chihuly to create this sort of narrative here. So the C form, that's the first one that you encounter as you're leaving Tacoma. And this is attributed to Chihuly's inspiration and obsession with water and the sea. And so you get to see all these ocean critters. And it's, well, you're looking up. That's one of my favorite parts of it, because it's the actual ceiling here. A completely different type of glass ceiling, one that you don't have to be afraid of. The second one are these iceberg ones right there in the middle. These are each a 40-foot tower, and they are illuminated at night. Perfection. And then the third part of the glass bridge are the Venetian vases. And this tells the chapter of Chihuly's life where after he got involved in glass art, he decided that it was time to advance his skills. So he went to Venice, where they were famous for generations for creating glass vases. And these, I always think of them as very like Dr. Seuss inspired acid trip looking pieces of art. These are all Chihuly vases representative of his time in Venice. So it's the Venetian glass wall. And all of this is right here. And if you're curious about more of these public installations, the Tacoma Art Museum, which does have a lovely exhibit of Chihuly glass in it, has this free walking map that you can access online and shows you not only where the Chihuly installations are, but tells you a little bit about them and what you should be looking for. And so they're all throughout here. This is the Chinook. This is the one that is inside the University of Washington Tacoma campus library. And it's a very Pharaoh's lighthouse thing for me because they illuminate this sucker at night and it just is this glowing red beacon at the top of a windowed tower. Very sexy. Another one that is quite famous is, of course, this chandelier, which is inside Union Station. For those of you who are not familiar with the Union Station story, that was Tacoma's train station, which was built in 1911 by the same architects that did Grand Central Terminal. They kind of wanted essentially like a bookend to the country, right? So you could get on the train in New York and then eventually arrive in the train station of a similar shape and form here in Tacoma, crossing the great country without dying of dysentery. It was a big deal. And so Union Station here in Tacoma operated as our train station until the 1980s, at which point it was abandoned when the train moved to a completely different station. And this lay open and vacant for quite some time until the federal government came in, leased it, and turned it into our federal courthouse for the area, which they still occupy. And I believe they just purchased the building for like $1, thus ensuring its legacy forever. But part of that revitalization of that structure was to put all this Chihuly inside, part of that 1990s movement of making the downtown corridor attractive, let's say. And so if you go inside the building today, let's see if I can make this bigger for you. You will still find all these Chihuly installations, his glass spears, his C-forms here, as well as some of his painted art that inspires what he does with glass. And this is all inside the Union Station building today. All you need is a piece of government ID, like a driver's license, for example, will get you inside past security because, again, it is a federal courthouse. So, yes, you can. This is open to the public. Totally great. And so that's easy. There's all this Chihuly glass just right downtown for people. It's so accessible, and I think people forget that that's a thing. But I don't want to discount the contribution of the Museum of Glass. So the Chihuly Glass Bridge is the bridge. I can't think of a better metaphor for it. Great job, Chihuly and City of Tacoma. You've done it yet again, you scoundrels. But it takes you across to where you can get access to the Museum of Glass. So here she is in her glory. Look at that skyline. It's as if someone designed it with the 21st Street Bridge there, the Tacoma Dome, and then this strange structure, right? So a lot of people are curious about what the heck this is, and then kind of, for my curious kittens out there, what the heck it's designed after. And so this is the hot shop for the Museum of Glass. Inside, they do live glass blowing demonstrations. Ever since the museum opened in 2002, it's served as this like, I don't know, crucible, melting pot. I could come up with some glass metaphors for you, but it is this area where artists get together and get to be inspired and showcase and create, and the public gets to come and get to experience it themselves. And so the hot shop is an integral part of that because inside you get to go and watch. There's usually a docent or an expert of some kind who narrates what you're watching here, and you get to see these live glass blowing demonstrations right there. But it is modeled after a beehive burner. When Tacoma was a lumber town, We had to get rid of the slag, right? The waste that is created by milling trees down into usable planks. And so all of that leftover stuff that wasn't used for various other commercial products got tossed in something like this and burned because we didn't want the city to catch fire like Seattle. And so the beehive burner became an iconic piece of a lumbertown skyline. And so when they were trying to design something that was effectively the same idea, a chimney, right? They created the hot shot for the Museum of Glass based on the inspiration of the beehive burner, and thus contributing forever and always to the quintessential Tacoma skyline. Look at that. Just absolutely stunning. So once Chihuly creates a reputation that's internationally known, right? Just de facto, because he's from Tacoma, we end up in that narrative, you know? And it's strange because Tacoma is at its very core a blue collar industrial port town full of entrepreneurs, innovators, and creators. That's what's cool about it. And so often somebody makes something in Tacoma, it is quintessentially good, and then it becomes famous somewhere else. You know, it's like the Foss Maritime Company is the one that I always go to all the time. The Foss Company is Tacoma. It's as Tacoma as you get. Teo is down there making it move, making money moves down on the waterway. That's why they call it the Foss Waterway. And now people often associate Foss with Seattle because once the company grew to a certain size, they relocated up there. And now people think, oh, Foss, Seattle. But really, you got to go back to our roots here. And same with Chihuly. This is the Tacoma story at its core. And so more and more glass art starts to grow in this field that I'll say Chihuly has plowed. And so if you were to go into the Museum of Glass today, you get to see these vivid, experimental, and incredible pieces of glass art that tell not just the story of glass innovation, but really of the community as a whole, too. These are some of my favorites from the day. And the Museum of Glass does this incredible program that I'm a huge fan of called the Kids Design Glass. The Kids Design Glass. I always want to say Kids Design Class. Kids Design Glass, where kiddos from the area draw something just out of their imagination, and then the museum's glass blowers in the hot shop turn it into a three-dimensional piece of glass. And they make two, one for the kid to keep, and then one for their collection. So here's a classic example of what I'm going to describe as broccoli hair pizza man, which was then rendered into something, you know, tangible and glass art. And so if you go, the kids collection is astounding. I absolutely love it. But of course, there's a ton of other glass art representing just the full spectrum of creation down there. Let's see, there's one also just outside of it, right? So it's not just inside the Museum of Glass, but obviously outside of it too. They've done a really good job of showcasing different pieces of glass art through the area. So this is a water forest. This was created by a guy named Howard Ben Trey, and that was commissioned by the city of Tacoma for the plaza here with the Museum of Glass. It's very cool. It kind of ties together that flow of the waterfront with Tacoma. I can't really express to you just how great the 90s were for Tacoma. After the rough time of the 1980s, we really got back on the horse again in the 90s, and such a cool art scene and like development of super fun cleanups happened in downtown. It really was a transformative moment. We took our glasses off and everyone was like, oh, you're not ugly. You're in fact going to be the whole climax of this movie. Good job, Tacoma. The other place that you can really go and see some incredible glass art and really the larger collection of curated Chihuly is, of course, the Tacoma Art Museum. And lucky for all of you guys, they're within striking distance of one another. You could do Washington State History Museum, Museum of Glass, Tacoma Art Museum, boom, 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 one after the other. And It's not just Chihuly. They have a lot of different art. One of my absolute favorite things they've ever had in their collection, and I actually don't know if this is still here right now. I haven't been in a while, but this is 4 giant blocks of glass that an artist took and layered together. So it's layer after layer after layer of glass that creates this solid cube. And in each layer, there are these magazine clippings. It's essentially a collage. And it's this chaotic cacophony of human history that spans from one side to the other and has a lot to say about the world and human progress. And you could lose 3 days staring at this thing. I think it's so amazing. And what's cool is it comes out three-dimensional because each layer of glass has a different section of that magazine clipping collage put together in it. And I'm like, this is the kind of stuff like people that play three-dimensional chess online in their head and just call out the moves. I don't really understand how it happens, but I'm glad that it has. Oh, want to make sure that you guys can still hear me here. Let me know if we're still, looks like the microphone's still going. So let me know. I'm going to switch you guys to, every now and then I'm just going to stop, make you think that you've lost sound. That'll be hilarious. So while you're downtown, I'd be remiss if I didn't, of course, mention the Hotel Murano. So when we're looking at the glass scene of Tacoma, of course, Chihuly is our origin story. And then as we rebrand ourselves as a city of glass and glass art creation, the Hotel Murano becomes an integral part of that story. And it's right downtown. It is the iconic hotel of Tacoma. And what's cool about them is that they have curated a collection of art inside. So not only is it named after Murano, Italy, which is just off the coast of Venice and has, been a glass blowing city for countless generations. It is filled, the Murano here, with different curated pieces of glass art. So they have a docent that they employ, and then each floor represents a different glass artist. Yes, Chihuly's in there as well. And then I think it's like 45 artists from 12 different countries are represented in there. So you get really a palpable feel for the variety of glass art that is available out there right now. And so even when you approach the museum, right? So this is a Ryzen. This is a 75-foot steel and plate glass sculpture, which was commissioned for the hotel and is designed for the site by a Greek artist, Kostas Varatosos. Kostas Varatosos. Man, forgive my Greek pronunciation tonight, if you possibly can. And it's supposed to be 3 giant Viking boats, also created by the Danish artist Vibke Skov. Apparently my Danish is better than my Greek. Who knew? And so the stained glass depicts different Norse myths. And so there's this just like huge explosion of glass art as you enter into the Murano. And then once you're inside, not only is the lobby its own glass museum, right? So like you'll see all these different displays as you just approach the main lobby, but there's glass art throughout. And each floor represents a different glass artist as well. So just walking downtown, right? You could intuit that there is some connection between Tacoma and glass art. And like I said, while it starts with Chihuly, that's just the genesis. Chihuly eventually started the Pilchuck artist colony, in the Pacific Northwest, and then really moved a lot of his operation up to Seattle. And while he still does do stuff in and around Tacoma, really, truly, Seattle has become the epicenter of the Chihuly glass movement, even though we're the origin story. And so there's a vacuum, I guess, like a power vacuum, where now someone has to start creating something here, and this road has been left open. What do we do? And so it starts around here at the Museum of Glass. This is just to show you guys how interesting I am in person as well. Look at those stunned faces. Absolutely thrilled to be on an in-person tour. But Tacoma Glass Blowing Studio is the one that pops to mind for me because this is right downtown. It's just off of Pack Ave, not too far from where the Museum of Glass, Washington State History Museum is. And they offer hands-on glass lessons. So if you want to try your hand at blowing glass, you absolutely can. And a few years back, I made a little promotional piece for them, which I'm going to share with you now. Wow. That was hot. Oh boy. So Tacoma Glass Blowing Studio, especially as a tour guide for the area, becomes one of the number one spots that I recommend to people because I think once you get a taste for this idea of Tacoma as a glass destination, the next logical step is to obviously go and try it yourself. And so it's a really good spot for it. They have a lot of intermediate ways to sort of address that and get into it. And then what's cool is you get to create something and then keep it, right? So I think they have 5 or 6 different kind of beginner items that you get to choose from and then make and keep yourself. And so that's number one. Again, that's right downtown. We can put a bunch of links to stuff later. But they get to work very closely with a group called the Hilltop Artists. And Hilltop Artists is one of my favorite programs from the area. Let's see if I can bring them up here. Okay, so here you get to see a little bit more about Museum of Glass. But Hilltop Artists is considered a youth development nonprofit. It's located right here in Tacoma, Washington. They primarily operate out of Jason Lee Middle School, which is on State Street, State and 6th Ave, just across the street from Bluebeard Coffee. And they have a hot shop in their school. And they operate these youth-driven programs since 1994. I don't know if I mentioned how great the 90s was for Tacoma. But what they do is create this program where the students get to create and then manage this glass art program. And so it's over 650 students a year. And we're talking students ages 12 through 26, right? And they get to do this programming and learn about glass art. And then through it, it's a character development program as well. And so to tell you a little bit more about it, I'm going to let the Hilltop Artists do that for themselves. So here they are. You get to hear from them about it.
So we do a lot of work with critical thinking skills and imagination, and our focus isn't so much to make wonderful glass artists, it's to make the people that we want to live with in our community. To blow glass, you could do that by yourself, but you really are better off if you're working with 2 or 3 other people. And so there is a language and there is a dance and there is a whole process of creating glass on a team. And so you learn verbal communication, nonverbal communication, how to express yourself. In 1994, it was very much conceived as a space for young people to go to hang out and be creative. And then over time, it turned into this professional program that you see today that has daytime elective classes, an after-school program, a team production component, and it's very much curriculum-based. It used to be that you aged out of the program on your 21st birthday, but now we started a new program this last year, so September of 2020, and it's called the Alumni Program. And it's for those students that are 18 plus that are interested in honing their skills, doing apprenticeship and mentoring type program with our staff here and doing advanced production with us, and then learning some of those things about becoming an emerging and established artist.
Going through all of the different glass things, like when I first started, it was very much that team building thing because I was a glass blower. So like learning how to work with others while you have dangerous things out, like you have hot glass, you have torches going, things like that. This program's open to kids starting at age 12. So like really anybody can start. It doesn't really matter what background you come from. Like I didn't even go to this middle school. I started as a summer program kid. And that's kind of just how I kept going for years, which it was fun. It was one of those things where like it was a new experience and I was a little bit different and I didn't know anybody, but like I still came here, I made friends with the staff, and I've been here for like 9 years. I definitely want to kind of pursue like saving up, getting my own torch set up at home, just being able to make those fun little things. I've been working on like mushroom fairies lately, really just like cute, fun things.
I was always a shy kid growing up, and with glass, like I said, you have to be in a team, work hard to communicate with your teammates, see what you're making, see what steps you need help, or what you're doing to help make that one piece. So stuff like that probably just helped me not be as shy as I was. Pretty much have to find their own place to work. If they want to do glass, they got to find a place to go to glass. But like this was like a way to get them back into glass if they were out of it for a few years. If they want to get back into it, just get the flow of things again. And then probably from here on, they could go work at another shop.
I think the biggest thing I learned was patience in myself and others, and additionally community, because like glass is like the campfire we tell our stories around. It's how we connect with each other, and it's the place where we get to know each other. It's really a place to connect. I started in the summer school program, and that was just before 8th grade, and I've been hooked ever since. I never went to Jason Lee, so the after school and summertime programs were the only time I could really get active during middle school. I was very grateful for those programs. Glass, it does what it wants some days, and you just have to work with it. And sometimes it's not going to want to move like you want it, or it's going to break, but you just have to be patient with it, be patient with yourself. Sometimes your teammates aren't going to be all there, because we all go through stuff, and you just have to learn to be patient and roll with what you have. Seeing kids come in as to where I was a year before that, and then now working with them and those being my fellow co-workers has been a very rewarding experience. And just to be able to progress through the program and get all the experiences that they will. There's really no other program like it that'll give them the same outcome.
Basically, you're just bringing joy to children. You're bringing joy to the children and the community, because you're teaching children from your local community how to do something that isn't very accessible to people that are young, nor is it very accessible to your average adult either. It's an expensive hobby. Not only are you funding children and their happiness, you're funding your own community and making things look nicer. So like, I think that's important to everybody.
A friend of mine put it very well. We lure kids in with the warm glass and playing with fire. But as you progress through the program, you learn about community and connection. And I think that was really true, and I only started to see that a few years ago as I reflected on my own connections that I made through this. It's as simple as buying a color that a kid likes, and then that hooks them into the program. Then that'll get them through school or get them through a hard day. Or even just money going towards the production teams and helping students with a little bit of income in their first job and getting that job experience. It really goes a long way.
I always think it's really exciting when after school has been going on for a while and then you see these 12-year-old kids come in after school and they just go over and they, they get their blowpipe and then they, get their buddy and then they figure out what they're going to make and they just start doing it. And it's like, wow, that's incredible. Every bit of support that we get counts towards what we're doing for our young people. Time counts. Giving us advice and support if you're a board member or a committee member, it all helps. And our mission is to get kids to better futures. And better futures starts with great education and developing goals for yourself. And so we're here to help with that.
So yes, we got some good stuff here. Yeah, hilltopartists.org. You can find out more about that. And I know that they do had fundraisers where they sell their various items. You can, I believe, commission pieces as well. And then you can see a lot of it too, because I believe they just won a huge award for one of their pieces that they created not too long ago. And there is just something intrinsically impactful about the whole program. Not only does it give them a trade skill, but it's something incredibly unique, in this creation. And so it's expressive, it's hands-on, and it creates an opportunity for people to work together in this kind of high stakes environment. And I think there's something to be said for that. With my limited history of blacksmithing, there is a clarity and a focus that comes from working with something that has an element of danger to it. It forces you to put your attention into that moment just for the safety of it. And without a doubt, the highest regards and comments come from the Hilltop program, because these kids have a sense of ownership and independence that they feel when they are a part of the program. It's not just a class that they're required to go to. They have expectations that they put on themselves so that they can continue to be in the program. And of the stuff in the area, it's absolutely one of the most impactful and incredible programs out there. And for me, it is the real story of glass art in Tacoma. This the Chihuly story began where he was just traveling constantly on this literal voyage to find himself and to figure out the direction and course of his life. And while he was taking an elective at University of Washington, which was, I believe, medieval tapestry restoration, he was experimenting with putting glass shards into that trade there. And so by weaving glass shards into the tapestries, this sort of like inspiration of maybe doing more glass took off and exploded into this movement now that no one could have possibly predicted. And any one of the kids that works in the Hilltop Artists program could be on a similar trajectory. And what I like is that it doesn't have to be internationally famous glass art, whatever. You can have an impact in just your immediate sphere in your life, and that is every bit as rich, rewarding, and worthwhile as any level of fame, I think. So to see the betterment of lives done here, and now, this explosion of community and creation, so much glass art has arisen out of this program, really, truly putting Tacoma on the map as a glass art city. So while you can experience the Chihuly downtown and you can stay at the Murano, you can also be involved in, the support of programs like this one. And Chihuly is also involved in it there. I'm trying to remember when this was, but the students with Hilltop got to hang out with him. He gave them a personal tour of his space up in Seattle, and they worked together on a couple projects. So the fact that he remains involved in this and that these students just continue this incredible, explosive, exponential trajectory of glass art in the area is phenomenal. If you are interested in getting involved and being a part of the narrative as well, Hilltop Artists is great. Tacoma Glassblowing Studio is phenomenal. You can really get a taste for the experience both at the Tacoma Art Museum and Museum of Glass, honestly. But Area 253 is a glassblowing studio as well. And this is a hot shop rental space for artists, people who want to do glass blowing, who are glass blowers, but don't have their own equipment or space. They can rent space here, but also they have classes and opportunities if you are just wanting to try it. It's considered the extreme sport of the arts community in the Pacific Northwest. And so this began in 2006, Area 253. They are located just here in Tacoma and offer, like I said, a huge opportunity for people. And they have a whole setup here, so you don't have to go out and get your own torch and wet newspaper and glory hole and whatever. You can come and experience the opportunity of glass blowing and get to learn a little bit more about it for yourself. And that's how we get here. What began as, I will say, one man's indecision, which was solved by art, and then turned into a passion that no one could have predicted, began a movement in Tacoma that really took root, like I said, in the 90s, in this effort to turn Tacoma around from a rough time in the 80s to an explosion of betterment in the area. And that's the glass story of Tacoma. Every element of it has been about making something better through glass art, whether it's the downtown corridor, the life of one man, or the lives and livelihoods of countless students, or just people in the area. Glass art has become the way that Tacoma has tried to right itself from more than one situation. So there you go, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in for this and giving an opportunity, because I was just thinking, I was like, we've never really talked about glass in Tacoma, which is bananas. It'd be like not talking about bagels in New York, or some other analogy that means more. If you guys have recommendations or thoughts of anything you'd like to see or know more about, please let me know. We are all over the area. We have tons of stuff coming up, both in-person tours and beyond. If you'd like to show your appreciation, you can always tip your guide right here, or on the homepage of prettygrittytours.com, and then check us out. I'm all over TikTok now, which was something that I fought tooth and nail, but my wife Tani kept telling me we should do it. So if you're into the TikTok at all, check it out. We have hours of content on there as well. So thank you guys. Have a fantastic night. And as always, keep on exploring. See you soon.